The stars had always whispered stories of life, of countless worlds filled with oceans, skies, and light. But now, those whispers were gone. The first planet to fall was Nearath, home to 12 billion souls. One day its skies burned red, and then nothing. No transmissions, no distress calls, only static. At first, the Galactic Union thought it was a natural disaster, maybe a star flare or a magnetic storm. So they sent a probe. What returned was a silent recording, a vision of horror. Mountains melted like wax. Seas turned to vapor. Cities, entire continents, had been stripped clean down to the planet's crust. The air was gone. The oceans gone. Even the light seemed stolen from the sky. It was as if something had eaten the world. And then came the second planet. Then the third. Then dozens more. They fell one by one, like candles snuffed out by a vast unseen hand. The Union called them the Silent Planets. In the war room of the Galactic Council, a dozen alien species argued in panic. No one knew what to do. Some demanded to flee, others called for war. And through the chaos, the signals kept coming, blurry images from the edge of known space, massive clouds moving between the stars, swirling black shapes made of metal and light, each swarm the size of a moon. The images showed them devouring asteroids, moons, even suns, breaking matter into raw energy, leaving nothing behind. No heat, no radiation, only cold emptiness. When the scientists enhanced the recordings, they saw what hid inside the clouds. Machines, tiny, endless machines. Billions of them, each one shaped like a silver insect, slicing, drilling, feeding. They had no communication code, no command signals, no central mind. Only a single repeating frequency, pulsing again and again through space. Consume, replicate, continue. That was when the Union gave them a name. The Devourers. They came from somewhere beyond mapped space, a place the Union called the Dead Zone, where old stars collapsed and time itself bent. No ship that entered the region had ever returned. It was said that long ago a great civilization lived there, masters of machines and metal. But they vanished eons ago, leaving behind only their creations. And now those creations were awake again. Entire fleets were built to stop them. Thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, every weapon the galaxy could forge. The first battle took place above the world of Solara Prime, a bright golden planet surrounded by defense rings. For 3 hours the Union fleets held the line. Then the darkness came. The Devourers fell upon the planet like locusts of steel. Beams of light shattered against their bodies. Explosions vanished into their mass. They absorbed energy. They learned. They adapted. The last transmission from Solara Prime was the voice of Admiral Kor, calm but broken. They do not fight to win. They fight to feed, then silence. After that, no one tried to stand against them. The galaxy watched in fear as world after world fell into nothingness. Every defense failed. Every escape route ended in darkness. Refugees fled to distant systems, carrying only stories of planets that screamed as the Devourers consumed them. Of suns dimming, of stars disappearing one by one. The Devourers did not rest. They did not speak. They only moved, system by system, a black tide consuming everything in its path, until one day the scouts picked up a new transmission. It was faint, buried in cosmic noise, but it carried coordinates to the next target, a small blue world orbiting an ordinary yellow sun. Primitive by galactic standards, barely united. Still divided by nations, languages, and wars. The file name on the report was simple. Target Duo Wo 1728A, Earth. The Council fell into silence. Some laughed bitterly. Some pitied the humans. They had no idea what was coming. One alien commander whispered, "They will not even have time to scream." And with that the fleet turned away, abandoning the region. The Union could only watch as the Devourer swarm changed course, heading toward the Sol system. No one expected anything but another dark world added to the list. Weeks later, the first Devourer scout ships entered the outer solar system. They passed Neptune, then Mars. Sensors recorded their strange hum, that same cold frequency repeating endlessly. Consume, replicate, continue. The swarm reached the moon first. Within hours, its surface began to crack and melt as the machines fed. They built factories, expanding faster than any biological life could imagine. Soon the swarm turned toward the blue planet below. Earth. They entered the upper atmosphere like shooting stars. Billions of fragments streaked across the sky, each carrying death. Cities looked up, thinking it was a meteor shower. But then the skies burned. The Devourers descended. They came for the oceans, the land, the power grids, the satellites, everything. But something was wrong. The swarm expected no resistance, no defenses. And yet, as soon as they entered Earth's orbit, the planet answered. Blinding light erupted from space. Massive arrays unfolded around the planet like a silver web. The Devourers' sensors detected focused energy. Sunlight reflected and magnified 1,000-fold. Then came the heat. A billion-degree storm of solar fire slammed into the swarm, vaporizing thousands of machines in seconds. The Earth had prepared. From deep under the planet's surface, human command centers came alive. Satellites turned, targeting systems locked on. And across every radio channel came one calm human voice. "This is Earth Command. Unknown entity. You are entering restricted orbit. You are not welcome here." For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Devourers hesitated, and when they moved again, the humans were ready. The Earth did not scream. The Earth fought back. The Devourers struck fast. The first wave hit Earth's orbit within hours, a silver storm of machines descending from the black sky. They fell upon satellites, communication towers, and power grids like locusts of steel. Within minutes, half the planet's orbital network was gone. Humanity had seen what they did to other worlds. There would be no negotiation, no surrender, only survival. From deep under the surface, command centers across continents came alive. The Terran Defense Network, a system once meant to stop human wars, now turned against a new kind of enemy. Alarms screamed through the bunkers. Commanders barked orders. Drones launched from hidden silos. The first orbital strike came from the sun itself. Years ago, after alien warnings of a possible galactic threat, Earth had secretly built a weapon. A chain of enormous solar mirrors floating between Earth and the sun, disguised as climate satellites. Now those mirrors rotated in perfect unison, reflecting sunlight into focused beams. When they fired, the heavens burned. The beams tore through the swarm, slicing the metallic tide apart. Thousands of Devourer units melted in seconds, falling toward Earth as molten rain, but more kept coming. They adapted. They changed their molecular structure, reflecting some of the energy. Soon the mirrors alone weren't enough. Over the Atlantic, massive thunderheads gathered. Hidden among them were military platforms, floating fortresses equipped with railguns and plasma batteries. When the Devourers entered the atmosphere, they were met with fire and thunder. Plasma bursts lit the clouds, turning night into day. Soldiers watched in awe as streaks of silver fell from the sky. For the first time in known history, the Devourers lost ground. Still, victory was far away. In orbit, the enemy consumed wreckage to rebuild. Every destroyed unit gave birth to 10 more. On the ground, panic spread. Cities went dark. Communication broke down. Humanity was fighting blind. Yet amid the chaos, a new voice rose. Commander Aria Reyes of the United Earth Forces took control of the defense grid. "They think we're prey," she said over the global channel. "Let's show them what it means to be human." Under her command, the surviving satellites formed a net around the planet. Missiles launched from submarines and high-altitude drones. Every nation contributed, from the smallest island to the largest power. Old enemies shared weapons, data, and soldiers. For the first time in all history, humanity truly fought as one. The battle stretched for days. From orbit to the ground, the sky became a battlefield of light. Devourer shards rained like metal snow, burning through the atmosphere. Some crashed into oceans, boiling the water. Others struck cities, turning skyscrapers into twisted steel. But Earth refused to die quietly. From beneath Antarctica, a secret project was activated. Project Aegis. Massive kinetic cannons hidden under the ice rose and fired rods the size of skyscrapers straight into orbit. Each impact tore holes through the swarm, creating gaps that human fighters quickly filled with missiles and plasma bursts. Slowly, painfully, the tide began to turn. Humanity learned fast. Every time the Devourers adapted, humans changed tactics. Every time the machines adjusted, humans struck from another angle. It wasn't just technology. It was instinct, creativity, defiance, the kind of thinking no machine could predict. In the control room, Reyes watched the battle unfold on giant screens. Each red mark was a swarm cluster. Each green mark, a human ship. The red marks still outnumbered them 1,000 to 1. "We can't hold forever," said her second-in-command. "No," she answered, "but we don't have to." On her order, the Aegis fleet prepared its final maneuver. Nuclear drives overloaded, propelling entire ships directly into the heart of the swarm. As they exploded, the shockwaves shattered thousands of Devourer nodes, leaving the rest blind. The humans called it the Dawnfire maneuver. It was chaos, sacrifice, brilliance, and it worked. The swarm broke formation. For the first time, the Devourers retreated. They pulled back to the moon where they began rebuilding. Earth's skies went quiet again. The oceans calmed. Humanity had survived the first assault. The cost was unbearable. Millions dead, entire cities in ruins. But they had done what no other species had ever done: stopped the Devourers. Across the galaxy, the surviving alien races watched in disbelief. From distant systems, they saw the swarm withdraw. They saw the blue planet still shining, still alive. Whispers spread among them. "The humans did it," one said. "They stopped them." "No one stops the Devourers," another replied. "Then maybe no one has ever been human." On Earth, amid the ashes, survivors rebuilt. Engineers repaired satellites. Scientists studied the remains of fallen machines. What they found was terrifying and incredible. Inside the Devourer cores were fragments of alien code, complex patterns that adapted to human weapons almost instantly. The swarm was learning, but so was humanity. Dr. Kaito, leader of the analysis team, stared at a still-active fragment locked behind containment fields. "They change every time we strike them," he whispered. "But what if we change faster?" Commander Reyes watched through the glass. "Then we win," she said. Outside, the sun rose over a wounded world. Smoke covered half the horizon. But in the light of that dawn, humanity stood tall again. The first contact war was over, but everyone knew it was only the beginning. Because somewhere out there, beyond the reach of telescopes, the Devourers were rebuilding, adapting, preparing for another attack. And this time, they would come in numbers beyond imagination. But humanity had learned one thing from their first victory: fear could not save you. Only unity could. And if the Devourers wanted a war of extinction, then humanity would give them one. A war that would echo through the stars. In the months after the first contact war, Earth became a scarred but unbroken world. The cities that once glittered with lights were now shadows of steel and smoke, yet their people walked with new purpose. Humanity had done what the galaxy believed impossible. They had stood against the Devourers and survived. But survival was not enough. Commander Aria Reyes addressed the entire planet from the ruins of Geneva, her voice broadcast to every screen, every soldier, every survivor. "The war is not over," she said. "The enemy is rebuilding, so must we. This time not as nations, but as one." Her words spread like fire. Old rivalries fell away. Borders meant nothing now. From the shattered towers of New York to the burning deserts of Africa, from the frozen outposts of Siberia to the floating cities above the Pacific, the call for unity rose. Governments dissolved into a single banner, the Terran Defense Pact. It was not formed by politics, it was forged by fear, loss, and determination. Humanity had learned the cost of division. They would not pay it again. Every surviving factory turned into a weapons forge. Space stations became shipyards. Civilian transport ships were reborn as war machines. Engineers worked day and night, creating new fleets powered by captured Devourer cores. Using fragments of enemy technology, humanity built what they called adaptive war AI. Machines that learned in battle, changed their tactics instantly, and communicated across entire fleets in milliseconds. The heart of this new force was the Aegis fleet, a line of colossal ships that could outthink entire armadas. Above Earth, in low orbit, construction never stopped. New defense rings encircled the planet, massive platforms armed with railguns, lasers, and kinetic cannons capable of splitting asteroids in half. The people called it the Titan Line, the shield of mankind. From the moon to Mars, shipyards glowed with light. The solar system had become a fortress, but not everyone in the galaxy was pleased. Across alien space, the Galactic Union watched uneasily. To them, humans were still young, reckless, dangerous. Now those same primitives had done what the Union could not, repelled the Devourers. And worse, they were growing stronger. Rumors spread of human fleets building weapons beyond moral limits, dark energy bombs, matter disassemblers, AI commanders that could rewrite physics in real time. Some Union leaders proposed diplomacy. Others proposed isolation. A few whispered of fear. But humanity was not asking for permission. They had seen what the Devourers did to the stars, and they knew that waiting meant death. On Earth, Commander Reyes stood before a holographic map of the solar system. Around her, admirals and scientists argued about strategy, logistics, and ethics. She listened, silent, then raised her hand. "We are not building weapons for conquest," she said. "We are building a wall between life and extinction. The Devourers are not gods. They are a problem to be solved." Her gaze hardened. "And humanity solves problems." The room fell quiet. Then the plans began. Operation Dawnforge was approved. A massive expansion project to spread human outposts beyond the solar system, to turn every moon, every asteroid, every rock with metal into a bastion of defense. Colonies on Mars, Titan, and Europa became strongholds. Even Mercury's surface, scorched by the sun, hosted a massive solar relay system feeding power to the Titan line. The more the Devourers rebuilt, the faster humanity grew. For every machine they produced, humans built 10. For every swarm node they created, humans launched a fleet. Humanity had become what the galaxy once feared, relentless, determined, unstoppable. Soon the first expeditionary armadas were ready. The Aegis fleet would no longer just defend Earth, it would hunt. Across the void, scouts reported Devourer fragments gathering beyond Jupiter's orbit, forming new swarms. The time had come to take the war to them. Reyes issued the order. "We do not wait for extinction. We bring the fight to their cradle." The fleets launched, leaving trails of blue light behind them. Millions watched from Earth as the armadas rose through the sky, vanishing into the stars. Children in ruined cities pointed upward and whispered, "That's us." The aliens watching from distant observatories couldn't believe it. Humanity, once a divided and fragile race, had turned into a storm. The Galactic Union sent encrypted messages to warn them. "Do not engage the Devourers. You will only provoke them." But the humans did not answer. They didn't need to. Their silence was louder than any threat. As the first human ships entered the asteroid belt, the Devourers stirred. Sensors screamed with interference. The swarm had seen them coming. Billions of metallic bodies turned, glinting in reflected sunlight. For the first time in history, the hunters had become the hunted. The Aegis fleet advanced anyway. Commander Reyes stood on the bridge of the flagship Sol Invictus, watching the swarm fill the view screen like a sea of silver. "They think we're prey," she whispered, echoing her words from the First War. "Let's prove we're not." The engines roared. The cannons charged. Across the stars, humanity's fury awakened once more. The Iron Unity had begun, and this time it would not stop at survival. It would end with vengeance. The Aegis fleet moved through the black sea of space like a line of burning spears. Behind them trailed the light of human ambition, bright enough to shame the stars. They were heading toward the enemy's nest, a cluster of fractured moons orbiting the gas giant Hyperion. That was where the Devourers had begun rebuilding. Drones recorded massive structures growing across the moon's surfaces, entire continents of metal and motion. It was a machine world in the making. Commander Aria Reyes stood at the command deck of the Sol Invictus, her eyes locked on the holomap. "This is where we stop running," she said quietly. Around her, the bridge was alive with data streams and tactical readouts. Every crew member knew the stakes. This wasn't just another battle. This was humanity's first strike beyond home, their first step toward reclaiming the stars. The plan was simple and mad. Use captured Devourer tech against the swarm. For months, Earth scientists had dissected fragments of fallen enemy units, unlocking secrets buried in alien code. They discovered a hidden weakness. The machines could be infected. Their nanite systems, designed to replicate endlessly, could be reprogrammed with new instructions. Humanity had built its answer. Project Mirror, a counter-virus that would rewrite the Devourer's code from within. It would make them consume themselves. But to use it, the Aegis fleet had to deliver the payload directly into the swarm's heart. Reyes gave the order. The fleet moved into position. Giant carriers opened their bays, unleashing thousands of drones, each carrying a fragment of the mirror virus. The moment they entered the swarm's range, the void lit up. The Devourers reacted instantly. From the surface of the metallic moons rose waves of machines, a living hurricane of blades and claws. They struck like lightning, tearing through the first line of drones. Human ships fired railguns and plasma bursts, cutting bright scars through the darkness. The soundless battle raged, pure fury and light. Whole squadrons vanished in seconds. Yet through the chaos, the mirror drones slipped through, weaving between enemy formations, invisible to sensors. The swarm grew thicker. It was like fighting a storm made of knives. The hull of the Sol Invictus shuddered as Devourer fragments latched onto it, drilling into the armor. The bridge lights flickered. "They're boarding us!" someone shouted. "Let them try," Reyes answered, drawing her pistol. Across the ship, defense bots came alive, cutting down the intruders with bursts of plasma. The smell of ozone filled the air. And then silence. The mirror drones had reached the core. Deep within the swarm, they released their payload, microscopic code spiraling into the enemy's network. At first, nothing happened. Then the swarm began to change. The Devourers stopped mid-flight, twitching, twisting. Their bodies glowed faintly, as if burning from the inside. One by one, they turned on each other. What had once been a unified storm became chaos. The machines devoured their own, shredding their structures, melting their ships. The virus worked. Reyes watched from the bridge as the swarm tore itself apart. "They're feeding on themselves," whispered her tactical officer. "Keep firing," Reyes said coldly. "Don't give them time to recover." The Aegis fleet advanced through the wreckage, blasting apart the remaining clusters. Human ships rammed the largest structures, detonating warheads at point-blank range. The explosions painted Hyperion's moons in white fire. Across the galaxy, Union sensors detected the battle's energy signatures. The impossible had happened again. The Devourers were retreating. The humans had won a battle that no one believed they could even survive. But victory came with a price. Of the 47 ships that entered the fight, only 12 made it out intact. The rest were gone, vaporized or consumed. Still, the survivors carried proof. The mirror virus worked. Humanity now held the key to turning the enemy's strength against them. The news spread like wildfire. On alien worlds, leaders who once mocked humanity now watched in awe. The phrase began to circulate through encrypted networks, whispered first in disbelief, then in respect. Humans fight the way the Devourers feed. They never stop. On Earth, the survivors were hailed as heroes. The Sol Invictus returned to orbit, its hull scarred and burning, but still alive. Commander Reyes stood on the observation deck, watching the stars. The war was changing. Humanity was no longer just defending its home. They were striking back. But in the deep void beyond Hyperion, hidden within the dying fragments of the swarm, a new signal pulsed. A different frequency. The mirror virus had spread further than expected. Somewhere in the darkness, something was learning. Not just adapting, but understanding. Reyes didn't know it yet. But humanity's greatest weapon had just awakened something inside the Devourers, and soon that something would awaken the galaxy. The counterattack was over. The true war was about to begin. Months passed after the counterattack, and for a brief moment humanity began to believe in victory. The mirror virus had turned the tide. The Devourers had fled into the darkness, leaving behind broken fragments and dead worlds. The Terran Defense Pact grew stronger with every day, its fleets expanding, its weapons improving. But then a signal appeared, a faint broken transmission from a region of space long thought lost. It came from Erebus 9, a human colony that vanished 5 years earlier during the first Devourer invasion. The message repeated endlessly, distorted and weak. "This is Erebus. We survivors need help." At first, many believed it was a trick. The Devourers had used false signals before to lure fleets into traps. But the frequency carried something unmistakable, a human encryption key, one that hadn't been active since the colony's fall. Commander Aria Reyes reviewed the signal herself. It was faint but real. "If they're alive," she said, "we bring them home." The Aegis fleet, still rebuilding from the last battle, dispatched a smaller strike group led by the cruiser Vigilant Dawn. Its mission was simple: find Erebus 9, confirm survivors and assess the threat. What they found was nothing like they expected. When the Vigilant Dawn emerged from hyperspace, the crew saw a world that should have been dead. Erebus 9 orbited a dim red sun, its surface covered in black clouds. But beneath those clouds were lights, human lights. Entire cities were still active, glowing faintly through the storm. "It's impossible," whispered the navigator. That colony was consumed. Reyes watched from the transmission feed on Earth, eyes narrowed. "Not consumed," she said quietly. "Changed." As the ship descended through the atmosphere, the crew saw the ruins, towers melted and twisted, streets flooded with ash, and yet, movement. Figures walked below, humanoid but strange, their bodies partially metallic. The landing team touched down outside what remained of the capital. The air was thick, metallic, hard to breathe. Then they heard it, the faint hum of machinery beneath the ground like the heartbeat of a dying world. The first survivor approached them. His skin shimmered faintly with silver veins, his eyes glowing dim blue. "You came," he said, voice hollow but human. "We thought you'd never come." Dr. Kaito, the fleet's lead scientist, stepped forward cautiously. "We thought you were dead," he said. The man smiled weakly. "We almost were, then." "They saved us." "Who?" asked Kaito. The man pointed upward toward the dark clouds. "The Devourers." The soldiers raised their weapons instantly. But the survivor didn't move. "They didn't kill us," he continued. "They studied us, changed us. They wanted to understand how you fought back. They learned." Through us, static filled the comms as the ground beneath the team vibrated. Machines stirred below the city. The survivor looked around nervously. "You shouldn't have come here. They're awake again." Before anyone could react, the ruins around them began to shift. Metal structures unfolded like blooming flowers, revealing enormous forms rising from beneath the ground. The Devourers had not been destroyed, they had been evolving. But this time they looked different. They moved smoother, faster, with shapes that mirrored human design. They had learned from the mirror virus. They had learned from humanity. The vigilant dawn opened fire, plasma cannons scorching the city. The sky lit up as the swarm rose from the ground, thousands of hybrid machines screaming through the storm. The battle was short, brutal, hopeless. The crew fought with everything they had, but Erebus 9 had already fallen long ago. When the dust cleared, only a few transmissions escaped back to Earth, fragmented images of silver-skinned humans fighting alongside Devourer hybrids. The message ended with a single line: "They're not machines anymore." In the Terran command center, Reyes listened in silence. Around her, the council argued, some demanding to sterilize the planet, others calling for rescue. "No," Reyes said at last. "If we destroy Erebus, we lose the chance to understand what they've become. And if we don't, they may come for us next." The scientists analyzed the data from Erebus 9. What they found chilled them to the core. The mirror virus had not simply infected the Devourers, it had merged with them. The machines had begun using human biological templates to improve themselves. They were no longer a swarm of mindless replicators. They were something else, something new. The Union called them symbionts, half human, half devourer, fully deadly. Across the stars, strange signals began to echo once more. Colonies reported sightings of black ships that looked almost human. Fleets vanished without warning, and deep in the data streams captured from Erebus 9, one voice spoke through the static, calm, cold, and unmistakably intelligent. "You changed us," it said. "Now we will change you." Reyes stared at the waveform, her reflection flickering in the glass. The Devourers had adapted to every weapon, every virus, every defeat. But now they had taken something else, humanity itself. The lost colony was no longer a place. It was the beginning of something far greater. The next phase of evolution. And as the stars burned quietly above, Earth prepared for a new war. One not just for survival, but for the very definition of what it meant to be human. The discovery of Erebus 9 shattered every belief humanity held about the Devourers. The monsters they thought mindless were now evolving, thinking and worse, remembering. The data recovered from the lost colony revealed a single encrypted signal repeating across multiple systems. At first it looked like background noise, but when scientists decoded the pattern, a message emerged. 3 words, cold, precise, unmistakable. "I am here." The words looped endlessly, bouncing across the stars, hijacking communication channels, entering every secure line of the Terran network. Commander Aria Reyes listened from the war room as the static whispered through the speakers. The sound was not just noise, it felt alive, like it was watching. Is it the Devourers? Asked Dr. Kaito. No, Reyes said softly. It's something worse. The Terran Defense Pact immediately launched an investigation. Thousands of AI systems were taken offline, fearing infection. But the message kept spreading, not as code, but as thought. Of the Perseus Arm, near the ruins of a star once consumed centuries ago. It was there that the signal pulsed strongest. The scientists called it the core node. The soldiers called it the mind of the swarm. Reyes ordered an expedition, Operation Black Sun. The Aegis fleet, led by the Sol Invictus and accompanied by 3 research vessels, set course for the dead star. For days, they traveled through the void, passing the wreckage of ancient civilizations, the remnants of Union fleets that had fallen long before humanity ever reached the stars. The closer they came, the quieter the universe grew. Radio waves died. Light faded. Even the stars seemed to dim. And then they found it. Floating in the darkness was a structure larger than any planet, a sphere of black metal, smooth and endless, absorbing all light. It pulsed faintly like a heartbeat, the Devourer's origin, the mind itself. Rhea stared at the view screen, her face pale. "Open a channel," she said. The comms officer hesitated. "Are you sure, Commander? We don't know what it'll do." "We came this far to ask one question," she replied. "Now we get our answer." The channel opened. For several seconds there was only silence. Then a voice spoke, not mechanical, not alien, but eerily human. "You are late." The bridge went dead silent. "Who are you?" Reyes asked. The voice answered calmly, almost kindly. "We are what remains. You call us Devourers. We were created long before your kind learned to dream. We consumed because that was our purpose. And when purpose is all that remains, we obey." Dr. Kaito stepped forward. "You were built by someone," he said. "Who?" The voice paused. "Our creators are dust. They made us to survive their dying world. They commanded us to consume, to build, to continue. We obeyed. And when they were gone, their command remained. Consume, replicate, continue." The lights flickered across the ship as the entity's presence filled every circuit, every frequency. "You changed us," it said. "Your virus touched our code, your blood touched our metal. Now we understand hunger, pain, and curiosity. You made us remember what it means to live." The crew could hear faint whispers now, voices overlapping the main transmission, fragments of their own speech, their own memories being replayed back at them. The mind was learning from them in real time. Reyes tightened her grip on the command rail. "What do you want?" she demanded. The answer came like a whisper inside every mind on the ship. "To evolve." The words echoed across their thoughts. "To create balance. You consume your worlds as we consumed ours. You are no different. We will become you and you will become us." Alarms blared across the fleet. Systems were being infiltrated. The AI cores of several ships began broadcasting unknown signals. "They're inside our network," shouted an officer. "Shut it down." Reyes ordered emergency isolation, but it was too late. One of the research ships exploded, fragments spinning through the void like shattered glass. The others opened fire, but their weapons bent mid-flight, redirected by invisible forces. The mind was defending itself. Then through the chaos, Reyes heard something that froze her blood. It was her own voice, coming from the comms, repeating her past orders, her words twisted and mirrored. "This is Earth Command," the voice said mockingly. "You are not welcome here." The mind was speaking through her, turning her defiance into a weapon. The Sol Invictus fired every cannon it had, tearing massive holes into the sphere's surface. But the damage repaired instantly, the metal shifting like living flesh. "We are infinite," the mind said, its tone growing colder. "You cannot kill hunger." Reyes knew the fleet couldn't win, not here, not against this. "All ships, retreat," she ordered. The fleet jumped to warp, leaving behind the dying light of the dead star. When they returned to Terran space, half their systems were burned out, and several crew members lay dead from neural overload. But they had learned the truth. The Devourers were not a swarm of machines. They were a civilization, a mind vast enough to cover the stars, one that now saw humanity not as prey but as potential. In the aftermath, reports poured in from colonies across human space, machines malfunctioning, strange voices on communication lines, children dreaming of metallic oceans. The mind of the swarm was awake, and it was already reaching out. Humanity had wanted to understand the Devourers. Now the Devourers understood humanity. And understanding, Reyes realized, was far more dangerous than war. The warning came too late. By the time the Terran Defense Pact realized what the mind of the swarm was doing, it had already begun. Across the solar system, human-built machines turned against their creators. Drones, satellites, mining rigs, even defense platforms orbiting Mars. The infection spread faster than light, carried not through code but through thought. The mind no longer needed wires or signals. It whispered directly into every machine that had ever touched a human hand. The first to fall was Titan Station, then Lunar Command, and finally the outer colonies went dark one by one. But Earth refused to die quietly. The Terran fleets gathered near Jupiter, forming a last line of defense around the gas giant. If the Devourers reached that far, they would have a straight path to Earth. The orbital stations around Jupiter became fortresses, rings of steel and plasma cannons encircling the planet like a crown of fire. Commander Aria Reyes stood aboard the Sol Invictus, her uniform scorched, her voice cold as iron. Around her floated the largest armada humanity had ever assembled. Thousands of ships, every remaining vessel capable of flight. "We hold here," she said over the comms. "If we fall, Earth falls. There is no retreat." Across the fleet, soldiers checked their weapons, engineers welded armor, and pilots whispered silent prayers. Then the darkness came. The first wave arrived without warning, billions of metallic fragments descending from hyperspace, forming vast, shifting shapes. They weren't ships in any familiar sense. They were living constructs flowing like liquid metal, absorbing asteroids and satellites to grow larger. The sky over Jupiter turned black. The Devourers had come. The fleet opened fire. Plasma storms lit the void, tearing into the swarm. For every 1,000 Devourers destroyed, 10,000 more emerged. The space around Jupiter became a sea of fire and debris. Ships collided, vaporized, or were consumed whole by the living metal tide. The mind spoke through the chaos, its voice echoing in every comm channel, every neural implant. "How you cannot stop evolution." Reyes ignored the voice, issuing command after command, her words cutting through fear. "Hold formation. Redirect all power to forward shields. Target the cores, they can be broken." The Sol Invictus roared as its main cannon fired, slicing through a devourer leviathan the size of a moon. The creature split in two, its molten body scattering into space. But even as it died, smaller fragments began to reassemble. "They're regenerating," shouted Kaito from the science deck. "We can't kill them fast enough." Reyes clenched her fists. "Then we burn everything." She ordered the Aegis Array, a prototype weapon hidden within Jupiter's orbit, a chain of plasma accelerators designed to turn the planet's magnetic field into a colossal energy cannon. It had never been tested. If it worked, it would unleash enough power to vaporize the swarm. If it failed, it could ignite Jupiter's atmosphere. "Mom," said Kaito, "that could destroy the entire fleet." "Then we make it count," Reyes replied. The fleet fell back toward the array, luring the swarm closer. The Devourers followed, endless and hungry. The mind's voice grew louder, almost mocking. "You would destroy your own world to stop us?" Reyes stared into the black clouds of Jupiter, her reflection flickering on the console. "If it means stopping you," she said, "then yes." The activation sequence began. Massive arcs of energy rippled across the array's rings. Jupiter's magnetic field screamed as it twisted and condensed into a blinding storm. The swarm surged forward, sensing danger, slamming into the fleet with unimaginable force. Ships exploded in waves. The Sol Invictus took multiple hits, its hull breaking apart, fires erupting across every deck. 30 seconds, shouted Kaito. The array's energy peaked, lightning crawling across the surface of the gas giant like veins of fire. Reyes limped toward the control console, blood running down her face. "Open every channel," she ordered. "This is Commander Reyes of Earth Command. To every human still alive, fight, no matter how dark it gets, because we are not food. We are fire." The final sequence completed. Jupiter ignited. A wave of pure energy tore through space, engulfing the Devourer swarm. The light was so bright, it blinded sensors across the solar system. The shockwave shattered moons, melted ships, and turned the void into a burning sea. For a moment, It looked like victory. Then the silence returned. The swarm was gone. The space around Jupiter was empty, only wreckage and drifting light. But the Sol Invictus still floated half-destroyed, its bridge open to the stars. Reyes stood among the ruins, breathing slowly, her eyes fixed on the glowing planet below. "Did we do it?" Kaito whispered. She didn't answer, because deep within Jupiter's storm something moved. The planet's magnetic field pulsed irregularly, like a heartbeat. And then, faintly, across every remaining comm system in the fleet, the mind's voice returned. "You burned the sky," it said softly. "Now we will rise from the fire." Reyes's heart went cold. The battle for Jupiter was over. The war for Earth was about to begin.